Bowser, King Koopa, the authoritarian turtle with a penchant for princess napping. His very name strikes fear into the heart of man and mushroom alike, and he's also pretty good at figure skating. But when you focus on Bowser's many attempts to put the Mushroom Kingdom under his rule, you might forget that to fuel his violent vanity projects, he must put hundreds of henchmen into harm's way. And by harm's way, I mean in front of Mario. But me? I never forget the troops. And today, I'm honoring those who have put their lives on the line for a megalomaniacal turtle. Today, I'm presenting you with Bowser's military hierarchy. I can't go any further than that. I'm sorry. But Brian, I hear you ask, why does Bowser need a military hierarchy? And folks, I hear you. I hear your questions constantly. They come to me in my dreams like a prophet receiving visions from an angry god. Bowser needs a military hierarchy because of the Geneva Conventions. Y'all remember those things? Those little rules that keep you from committing war crimes? Look, I know Bowser is a bad dude, but I don't think Nintendo would actively create a war criminal and then allow him to sit in the backseat of a go-kart with a baby. This is thanks to how we define armed conflict. I read through the entirety of the Geneva Conventions in order to find this information, which turned out to be unnecessary, because there's a far more succinct definition in a far shorter paper. But do I regret reading the Geneva Conventions? Of course not. Knowledge is its own reward, and could I really call this an Unraveled if I didn't spend a whole day reading 224 pages of dense legalese for no good reason? Of course I couldn't. Of course I couldn't. If Bowser wants to keep his armed conflict above board, we need to codify his aggressions. So this means his henchmen need to follow a command structure, one that is not at all clear-cut in the games. All we need is a list of Bowser's troops. That's where this book comes in. It's the Super Mario Bros. Encyclopedia, the official listing of everything you could ever want to know about the 17 games in the main series of Super Mario Bros. The main series are just the platformers. None of the RPGs or spin-offs. But the silver lining to this means that I can spend a different Unraveled talking about those games, because God has cursed me for my hubris, and my work is never finished. Of the 17 in the main series, I'm gonna cut these 3 games because they don't have Bowser as the main antagonist, and I'm also gonna include Super Mario Odyssey because that came out after this book was published. That leaves us with 15 games and 226 enemies. I came to this number because I cut out the variants, I cut out all of the shadow versions of Mario, the mini-game enemies, the enemies that are just machines, and Bowser's personas, because those should never be exposed to the horrors of war. Now I need to figure out how to structure this hierarchy. I ask myself, is there an analogous military that is somewhat bloated, often antagonistic, and seems to be the only thing that the leadership cares about funding? Unfortunately, I couldn't find any real-life examples of this. So I'm loosely basing it on the US military. That means Bowser's military will be split up into branches based on which henchmen work best together, and I'm also going to try to fit them alongside commissioned officers and enlisted troops, the standard command structure that's found in most militaries. Let's start with the heads of state. Obviously, we have Bowser up at the top, the commander-in-chief. His Secretary of Defense is going to be Kamek, with Kamela standing by as the National Security Council. We've also got Bowser Jr. up here, but he's not in a military role, he's actually Secretary of Transportation, but that's just pure nepotism. The rest of Bowser's henchmen are going to fit into this hierarchy, and I'm just going to say one henchman per rank, the one that epitomizes what that rank means, and I'm going to list the rest of the enemies on the screen, because I do want to save at least a little bit of paper. Obviously, I don't want to save paper that much. Starting with our infantry, we have our enlisted ranks with Private Goomba. This makes sense. It is the basic troop. Moving up a step to the corporal, we've got the Galoomba. It's more mature than the Goomba, and also its name has an extra syllable and is way more fun to yell.
Look at this Galoomba.
Look at this Galoomba! Chargin' Chuck is a great pick for sergeant class because this troop obviously enlisted right after being their high school star quarterback and moved up through the ranks quickly. And now that we're up at warrant officer, officer, the top of the enlisted ranks, we've got, it's just a tower of Goombas. Kind of like the Naval Academy's Herndon Monument, Goombas become stronger and work together better when they're standing on top of one another. Moving our way up to the commissioned officers, we start out with Officer Cadet, and that's gonna be Twirlip. It's got the round, soft body of a Day 1 ROTC recruit, but there's ambition in those eyes. Second lieutenant, we've got the Snailicorn. It's the natural evolution from the Officer Cadet, but a bit more dangerous. By the time you've reached first lieutenant, you've really proved your mettle and are ready to show your dedication to the cause. And what better way to show your dedication than to be literally shot from a cannon? By the time you reach captain, you need to have a top-down perspective. And that's why the Pokey's height is great for this rank. Also, the Pokey understands how to take calculated losses in stride, like having literally all of their torso punched out from under them and still maintaining a smile. Next we have Major Squizzard, and I'm gonna gloss over him because his name makes me uncomfortable. For Lieutenant Colonel, I chose Wiggler because they're able to maintain composure and only release their aggression when it's absolutely necessary. But quick shout out to Stareface Ogre, who's also a Lieutenant Colonel and sounds like he could be a member of the Wu-Tang Clan. Next we have Colonel Spike. At the colonel rank, you are not only dealing with wartime issues, but also the internal politics of the military, which is why Spike makes time to have a few rounds of tennis with the boss. A brigadier general needs an eye for detail and a strong guiding hand. And that's literally all Knuckletech is. Major Burroughs really deserves the rank of Major General because he has demonstrated a powerful understanding of many strategies in many different battle arenas. But more than that, he has this tender leadership quality that makes him not only respected, but loved by his peers. And then above him is a fucking T-Rex. Unfortunately, even the military hierarchy is not insulated from nepotism, and though no one would describe PD Piranha as capable in literally any circumstance, his father took a bullet for Bowser back in the Korean War, so now he's a general. And finally, we have our Field Marshal, the 5-star general. Obviously, this person is going to oversee every aspect of Bowser's infantry, and it has to be filled with the most overpowered troop. So it's Ukiki. This shitheel of a monkey plays dumb, but he is the Sun Tzu of Bowser's army. Listen to these quotes. All warfare is based on deception. If your opponent is of choleric temperament, seek to irritate him. Steal their hats. And that is the basic structure of Bowser's infantry, though there are also 3 special divisions of infantry units that are trained to fight in different conditions. The Lava and the Ice divisions are still found under Field Marshal Ukiki, and they don't have any enlisted troops. I won't talk too much about these two, but I think they are epitomized by the Bully for the Lava group and the Chill Bully for the Ice group, who's exactly like the Bully, except he'll kind of go easy on you if he can tell you're having a rough day. And the third special unit in the infantry is the Spectral unit, or the Dry Corps, because not even death can excuse you from service in Bowser's army. I do want to talk about the implications of this unit for a moment, specifically Dry Bones and Dry Bowser, whose naming conventions confuse and frighten me. When I die, will I become Dry Brian? Is a living Bowser Wet Bowser? Why do Piranha Plant have bone in it? Next we have our aquatic troops. Where can you find pleasure? Search the world for treasure. Learn science technology. Where can you begin to make your dreams all come true? On the land or on the sea? In the Navy. I won't overstay my welcome on the naval forces because we already understand what each of the ranks in the hierarchy entail, but I did just want to point out one troop, the Gushin, because its name is the Gushin, and I had to learn that its name was the Gushin, and now you need to know that it's called a Gushin as well. And of course, the admiral of the fleet is going to be Unagi, because Unagi is the most terrifying character ever rendered. Get fucked, Mr. X. Now on to the Air Force. We start with the Paragoomba at our lowest rank, and honestly, we're gonna skip ahead to Wing Commander because most of the Air Force is just infantry but with wings attached. Lakitu is our Wing Commander. You might remember him as that helpful guy who picks you up in Mario Kart, but he actually got his start in carpet bombing. And it might seem redundant to have Klepto as the Marshal of the Air Force, but if there's one strategy that Bowser's military understands better than anything else, it's stealing hats. And these are the branches of Bowser's military. Of course, there are also special forces, units that Bowser can send in when he needs something to be done quietly and cleanly. Like when he sent the Brutals to perform the extrajudicial killing of Professor Egad. Next, we've got the Bros. I'm talking the Hammer Bro, the Fire Bro, every bro in between. You can learn more about them in the HBO series Band of Brothers. I assume. I've never watched the show. It's time for the special forces called the Funny Parade. It's the Funny Parade. You know about thwomps, but did you know that there are thwimps? And the womps have wimps? Wimps and thwomps and wimps and womps and grindles and spindles and grolls. There's toxbox and flomps and romps and bumps and walleyes and wallops, and they're all pretty much invincible, and they will crush you without hesitation, like a cartoonish Sherman's March to the Sea. Next, we've got the Koopalings. They're sort of like the SEAL Team 6 of Bowser's army. Iggy, Larry, Lemmy, Roy, Wendy O, Ludwig von. Notice that I did not include Morton Koopa Jr., because despite what he has written in his memoirs, he's never actually been active duty, and he's a valor-stealing bastard. And the final Special Forces team, it's the Stews. Scrollin' Stew. Soarin' Stew. Swipin' Stew. Smolden Stew. I don't know if they're good at fighting, but they are good at being the best fucking characters in Mario. And that is every troop in Bowser's military. Except for these 6 specific ones, they didn't really fit in the military structure. They don't act like military. The Koopa Troopas from Super Mario 64, they don't even antagonize you. Like, they go about their business unless you go out of your way to attack them. So, again, they don't even, like, feel like military. They act more like civilians, to be honest. Oh my god, they're civilians. Okay, so maybe reading the full Geneva Conventions wasn't such an unnecessary thing. After all, there's this thing called the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, and in Article 8, subsection 2, it states that grave breaches of the Geneva Conventions count as war crimes. And if these Koopa Troopas are in fact not Troopas but civilians and Mario kills them, then that is a direct violation of Article 8, Part 2, subsection B1, intentionally directing attacks at the civilian population. Mario is a war criminal. But that's not the only breach, God no. Subsection A4, extensive destruction and appropriation of property, destroying a brick to gain a coin. Subsection A5, compelling a prisoner of war to serve in the forces of a hostile power. What else could you call using Cappy to possess enemies and then forcing them to fire on their own friends? Subsection A8, taking of hostages. What was Mario doing with that penguin child? You might think, hey, maybe Mario's just become hardened after years of onslaught by Bowser, but look back to Mario's youth. I know I didn't include Yoshi's Island in these lists of games, but subsection B, 21, committing outrages upon personal dignity, in particular, humiliating and degrading treatment. Yoshi made Bert the Bashful's pants fall down, but baby Mario gave the order. He already feels bashful! You didn't need to pants the man! Mario has committed at least 5 war crimes, and I'm not even including the child soldiers he has enlisted in the RPGs. But luckily, I've already compiled an extensive PDF that I've just emailed to The Hague outlining Mario's crimes. Still, it's important to note that Bowser is also at fault. The great loss of Goomba life is a tragedy, no matter which side you are on. The true enemy is war itself. And to fix that, we have to turn to the only thing that has worked in the past. Song.
The Koopa Troopers cooped up in the trenches. When you put down the bombs, you pick up friendships. So open up your heart and let the love come gushing out. We are the Goombas. So please stop jumping on each other. You big Galoombas. You big Galoombas. Why do we fight to take each other's space when there's so much room to spare? We could all have extra lives and we just share. One more time, everyone. We are the Toads. We are the Toads. are the Goombas. Please stop jumping on each other, you big Goombas.
Big Goombas, why do we fight to take each other's space when there's so much room to spare?
We all have extra